I just sat down with my friend Kaspa Silver. Kaspa Silver is a leading voice in the Kaspa community all over social media and YouTube, and has even debated Bitcoin Maxis like Rajat Soni. During this interview, Kaspa Silver and I discussed the differences between Bitcoin and Kaspa, why Kaspa is a better and more efficient technology, and what exactly is wrong with Bitcoin. Before we jump in, make sure you like this video, and if you felt like you got value from it, make sure to subscribe to us here on YouTube. Now, here is my interview with Kaspa Silver. Why is Kaspa versus Bitcoin getting so much attention right now?
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much ever since I joined Kaspa, it was always getting in the conversation with Bitcoin. And I had always told people like that's something very interesting to notice that Kaspa is one of the only coins that can consistently get in the conversation with Bitcoin. Um, and largely it's because when a Bitcoiner tries to talk against it, they really don't have anything valuable to say against it. And then they kind of just take approaches that are very easily debunked hundreds of times over, which is just the growing pains of Kaspa. I think every new technology that is changing the game is going to face that kind of scrutiny, which is good. It's healthy. I mean, I think Kaspa needs it. If it didn't get that, then I would be concerned. Um, I am the most open-minded person out here. Like I accept all types of criticism, and I love seeing what people have to say and then actually comparing that against what's true. So yeah, the Kaspa versus Bitcoin debate kind of just got more popular once basically like the Bitcoiners on X decided to host a space with a couple Kaspa people, and I was included in there, and kind of just talked for like I think went on for like 3-4 hours, and we were actually able to just talk and not run into people who would just kind of be very immature about it, and instead just compare ideas and talk about different opinions and get Kaspa kind of out there so that Bitcoiners will understand it more. And then ever since that podcast happened on X, it kind of just took off. Bitcoiners started realizing too that if you talk about Kaspa, you'll get more views, which is kind of funny because it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, so Kaspa has network effects already happening. So now it's like a joke in the Bitcoin community to just talk about Kaspa because a bunch of Kaspa people will appear underneath their comments,
Yeah.
which, hey, I'm not complaining. Like I even respond purposely knowing that, they're just trying to engagement farm, but my goal isn't really to convince the poster. It's more so just to spread awareness that someone who's actually thinking critically for themselves will see Caspa and just, hey, just take a look at it. I mean, it's not going to hurt you to spend time just studying something for yourself and coming to your own conclusions. Um, and so that's kind of how it just started taking off more and more. And then eventually I got invited to do that podcast. Wasn't really invited. Mr. M kind of asked if anyone would be willing to do a debate. And I was like, hey, I'll do it. Like, I don't mind. And the debate was with someone that I've actually known for a while, even way before he became a Bitcoiner. Um, Back in the day, like when I was kind of like starting my financial journey and trying to grow more in making like passive income and different income streams, I like made an Instagram account, and it was like a financial account where I was kind of just like spreading my what I've learned and like what I'm doing with my money and like how to manage it correctly. And then I ran into Rajat, and he was doing kind of the same thing. So like he was a little bit of my inspiration to like make kind of content like that. But that was before he was a Bitcoiner. He was just like more like a stocks guy. And I'm pretty sure if you look in the past of his videos, like he may even like tell you like, oh, Bitcoin, only have like 1% or 5% in it. And then I guess he just like flipped and realized how like Bitcoin is just obviously more popular to be for, and you can get a lot more attention that way. So he kind of just flipped to like a Bitcoin maxi kind of position. And then so like I kind of knew him before, like when he was more like a traditional finance guy, and then he just became a Bitcoiner. And then so I was kind of like ready to how he talks and how he is. And
Yeah.
we got into the debate, and I don't know, it wasn't really much. Like someone said it perfectly in the comment section. Like this wasn't really like much of a debate. It felt like Casper was on trial, and it was like having to prove itself that like it's not a scam, like it's legitimate. Um, but it was, I mean, it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I think back and I'm like, I wish Mr. M would have like kind of stepped in when he realized that we were stuck on one topic for too long. But I should have read the room and kind of just like, hey, let's like go to something else. Like we definitely don't agree here.
Yeah.
But yeah, towards the end, we got into more other topics, and I think it was a lot more valuable. Um, I did just wish I had someone that was a little bit more technical about understanding Bitcoin and how it actually works and stuff like that. Because I think we would have had like a lot more valuable conversations there. But I'm still learning too. Like I don't want to claim that like I kind of know everything about Caspa. Like I'm always still learning. There's always something new to learn. I'm just always trying to make my understanding of Caspa extremely broad. Like I don't just want to be like, oh, I know that Caspa's good and then make videos about why it's good. I actually want to like do all aspects of Caspa. So like I do mining, I run my own node, like I do all aspects of Caspa so that my content is very broad and it teaches the audience, it gives them value. I mean, like that's the main goal. Like I'm not really here to just like, yeah, we want Caspa to go up in price, of course. Like who wouldn't? Why would anyone want to put their money in something and watch it just go down? Obviously we don't want that, but since it's so obvious we want that, I think it's so repetitive to make content focused on that. I think it's much more valuable to actually teach people what is crypto, teach people why it's important, and then teach how to use the tools within it to actually better themselves and to be able to use their wealth in different ways. Because I think that's the one thing about Caspa that is kind of opening up now and people are not realizing is that Caspa is a lot more bigger than just transferring value. It's a lot more bigger than just storing value. I mean, it's the first time that we have a proof of work system that can practically operate very closely to internet speeds and not only just move value, but move communications, do certain types of proofs for people. And it's just so programmable and it's, in my opinion, much more permissionless than Bitcoin because it can scale. Because if we're looking at the Bitcoin community right now, they're arguing over which node implementation to run because they're worried about spam. Now, I got to put spam in quotations because on the Caspa network, it's not spam. It's just you using it. And if you want to use the Caspa network that way, go ahead. I mean, it's freedom money. Like you are free to use it how you want to use it. And Caspa can handle it. And hey, if you congest the network, we're just going to adapt and make Caspa scale even more. And that's just something Bitcoin doesn't have. So instead of just accepting that they should be adapting to where technology is heading, they want to stay gun ho to the store value narrative, which is okay. I mean, that's fine to do. It's just, I think it just leaves a door wide open for something to still come in and be a digital cash, like an actual digital money. Store value is just store value. I mean, if that's all it is, then it still is not really that competitive to cash. And Caspa, I think, is bringing something that is the first time that could be a real competitor to replacing our fiat and actually using a digital cash system that works to users' needs and ask. You know, if you want to use it to save your money, you can do that. If you want to spend with it, you could do that. If you want to mess with smart contracts in the future or mess with tokens or NFTs, anything kind of like that, you could do all of that. You know, Caspa is just like a playground for proof of work enthusiasts. And that's the thing. Proof of work has just never been able to do what Caspa has been able to do right now. And people are just waking up to that. Like a lot of people think like Caspa is not able to do things, but it's like, no, it's here right now. Proof of work can do this today. We don't have to wait 20 years or something like that. I mean, like I look at Ethereum and and Vitalik would say things like decentralization is going to be a 20-year thing to solve for Ethereum because right now it's too centralized. And I'm like, 20 years, Caspa right now is decentralized and can do practically everything that Ethereum can do, but better. So it's going to be doing those things, but better. So it's just like, I mean, to me, I just can't ignore Caspa. Ignoring Caspa to me is being completely unwise and unhonest with where technology naturally always progresses to and where man always naturally kind of flocks to. They flock to the most convenient thing. So
talk about the proof of work versus proof of stake then. Let's stay there for a second because I've seen some of your tweets before. You've had criticisms about proof of stake chains and the security aspect behind it. But what makes Kaspa different even against Bitcoin, even though they're both proof of work, right? When I was interviewing Vijay, he said that he believes Kaspa could be a competitor to ETH. And Kaspa to me is so interesting because it is offering a space to build an ecosystem like you see on an Ethereum or a Solana or a Cardano or something like a layer one, but it is proof of work still. So, and I've seen one of your tweets recently. I think you said like you'll never support like a KRC20 token. You're fully just supporting Kaspa itself. So, which was strange to me because I know once you start to have successful KRC20 tokens, especially if they're able to build stablecoins or attract USDC onto it, I think that would be huge for Kaspa. But I was curious to see what you thought about that.
Yeah, so like a lot of people like kind of misunderstood me when I said that. They kind of just thought that like I was against smart contracts in general. And I'm not. I'm against things that to me, in my opinion, are just simply not that useful. I would just never promote a meme coin on my channel, because at the end of the day, for being real, meme coins are hype. They're driven by hype and short-term gains. They're not something built for longevity a lot of times. They may last a while, but long term though, their value is just limited to the amount of hype that they're able to achieve. And then also tokens on Kaspa itself, they're not backed by proof of work. They're backed by the team that's behind them. And then if that team was to go away, then that kind of it just makes they're just so fragile to sudden interruptions of like how it's viewed. Because if a narrative is broken, then it's like it ruins the whole meme, because if that narrative gets destroyed in some kind of way, then people can lose trust in the vibe. Really what it is, it's backed by vibes, not necessarily like anything fundamental. So I don't
Yeah.
want to promote something like that, and that's just because, hey, that's my risk tolerance. I'm not capable of getting that risky. Crypto's already risky.
Yeah.
Like why am I going to make it more riskier for myself, especially like considering like I have a wife, I have a daughter, I have to support my family. Like I don't want to be promoting something that I would never want to get into. I don't care how much money someone would try to offer me to promote those things. I just won't do it. It's just not, it's not ethical to me. And so, but I don't, I'm not against them existing, because again, Caspa's freedom money, it's permissionless. If you want to be truly permissionless, then no one should need permission to do what they want to do. If you want to do that stuff, go ahead. People are always going to do it. It doesn't matter how many times I say I'm not going to do it. People are still going to do it, and it does
Yeah.
help support the network at the end of the day. But I
Are
rather
there
promote.
are there
Yeah,
any Kaspa KRC20 tokens like right now that you actually have your eye on, or do none of them, are basically all of them too small, too fragile still at the moment?
yeah. I've not seen any that have seriously caught my attention. Um, all of them are still just too fragile. Like they're not something built for longevity. Um, but that doesn't mean I'm against stablecoins. I think stablecoins are crucially important. I mean, I think I would be ignorant to kind of just be like, oh yeah, stablecoins, who cares if that comes on Casper? Like that's silly. Stablecoins make up most of all the volume
Yeah.
in the market.
Didn't I
They're
see something about Kaspa and USDC recently?
yes. Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, stablecoins are being basically like worked out to be coming to Caspa. We're kind of just waiting on how they're going to be implemented, because there's different ways they could be implemented. It could be implemented on a layer 2. It could be implemented on the base layer, which would be very interesting, because if it's on the base layer itself, I mean, we're talking like a stable coin that's literally just using the Caspa network itself on the
Yeah.
layer 1, and then the
Super
fees being
fast.
generated for the miners. Like that's just really, really good. So I'm all for stable coins. I think they're very important. They're kind of, their network effects are kind of like undeniable. You got to adopt those if you want onboarding incentives. But I just remind people that, hey, stable coins are still fiat. It's still backed by the dollar. The dollar is always declining and inflating. The stable coin is not the end goal. The end goal is onboarding incentives for then people to start using the Caspa network and realizing, oh snap, I mean, I could just be using Caspa itself because it's this fast and it works this well.
Yeah.
So like that's not the end goal, but for onboarding incentive sake, yeah, like stable coins are great. And then you
Yeah.
asked about proof of work, proof of stake. and why even comparing Kaspa to Bitcoin, proof of work on Kaspa is better. So to start off there, proof of stake, basically it just makes the rich get richer, because the proof of stake networks for Ethereum, we're just going to take Ethereum for example. If you want to be a validator, which a validator would be the person who's actually able to allow the transaction to go through, you need a stake like 32 Ethereum.
Yeah, it's a
And
lot
it
of
needs
money
to be
right now.
like 100, it's like 100K, over 100K. So what does that mean? Well, it means that validators, instead of being individuals around the world, they become entities around the world, and practically not that many entities. And then a problem about these entities are that they're centralized, and typically they have to follow government sanctions, government orders. And that's why today already Ethereum is not censorship resistant. The validators are already practicing OFAC compliance, meaning that there's certain blocks that if there's a certain address in there, they block. Now, today, it's all good. Like today, it's all rainbows and sunshine in the proof of stake world where, oh, yeah, they're censoring people who are literally like addresses that are literally known for committing fraud or something like that, which is okay. But the problem is, what happens when things actually get tough? When they start saying that, hey, just because of this idea that you have, you shouldn't be allowed to transact anymore because you have a certain political idea or a certain
Wow.
religious affiliation. What happened? What happens then?
It's
And
no
they start
difference
censoring.
than the government.
Then it becomes a problem.
Yeah, that's the whole point
And
of crypto. Just get
yeah,
away from those types of entities and those types of issues.
exactly. And proof of stake is basically fiat 2.0, just on a digital
Wow,
kind of
that's
system.
a big take.
So that's basically like the main problem with proof of stake is they're just very fragile. They may be decentralized now. Yeah, there's a lot of entities, but if things were to get tough, which your network should be ready for if things get tough, it's not ready. Proof of stake networks are not pretty much ready for that kind of scenario playing out. And then on top of that, like we already said, being a validator, not anyone can be a validator on these networks. And then that brings us to proof of work. Well, in proof of work world, they like to say, oh, it's centralized because only big companies are able to make the ASIC miners, and then there's only a couple companies that make them, and then they usually mine it first, and then they give it out to people, which is true. But in Kaspa's case, Kaspa had a fast emission schedule on purpose to make sure all the coins get distributed to more of retail rather than these companies who are making ASICs. So when ASICs came online with Kaspa, it was already 70% mined. So that means 70% of the coins got in the hands of CPU miners, GPU miners, which are a much more broad group of people. And then when ASICs come in, then the ASIC game starts. And then, the companies make an ASIC, they mine it for a little bit, then they sell it to the retail, and then they get distributed around the world. But it still does, like, just because that happens doesn't mean like Kaspa is now no longer censorship resistant, because it still is. I mean, with Kaspa, I mine at my own home and I mine to my own node as well, which is very, very important because in Bitcoin world, because the block production is so slow, you are forced to mine to a pool. And when you mine to a pool, these pools are now entities that could kind of fall in the same line of proof of stake networks. How, like, if the government was to start sanctioning stuff or blocking certain transactions, they could do that. They could force these pools to follow in that kind of order. And then your only hope is that the miner leaves the pool and starts going to another pool that isn't doing that anymore. But I don't think that's like a good kind of you're just kind of hoping that the miner is going to choose to be the most honest kind of a miner. But what if the miner doesn't care? What if the miner doesn't really care that, oh, they're blocking certain transactions, but if I stay on this pool, I make the most money here. So why am I going to go to another pool where I'm probably not going to make the most money, because they're not fine. They're not, that other pool is not allowing certain kind of transactions to go through. Like right now, there's certain pools that are built to not allow spam to get through the network on Bitcoin, which is called spam. And to be honest, spam is like the only thing that's giving fees to the network right now. Like those are the people that are actually using Bitcoin right now mainly, which is what every proof of work system needs is use. It needs to be used so that fees are generated, so that miners can remain, incentivized to stay on the network. And the difference with Caspa is that because blocks are produced 10 blocks a second, the variance of finding a block is not that high. So I could stay on my own node. I don't have to join a pool. And I can also save on fees, because when you join a pool, they charge you a little bit of a fee to use them. Whereas with Caspa, I run my own node, which is what you're seeing back there is literally the BlockDAG Explorer, 10 blocks per second.
Yeah.
I'm running my own node behind me right now. My miner is literally connected to my own node. I'm fully self-sovereign here. I'm not relying on anybody anywhere to run the Caspa network pretty much. You know, I can find blocks on my own. And
So hooked up to your TV, that's the actual GHOSTDAG
yes,
protocol.
yes,
That's
that
your
right
own
there.
miner.
Yes.
That's
So
wow,
yeah, it's
that's pretty
connected
sick.
to my own miner, and it's currently in my garage. My miner is down there, but I have it pointing to my node, which is currently running right here. I think if I could kind of show it, that little PC, mini PC right there is running a Caspa node right now.
Wow.
So that's, I'm fully self-sovereign. I'm not
Do
relying
you have
on any.
do you have an Ice River?
Yes. Yes, I have an Ice
Nice.
River miner, home miner. And that's another thing. Like, these home miners are pretty cheap. They're not even that expensive. Like, you know, if you want to start validating blocks on Ethereum, you know, 100K you need to put in for a home miner here to start finding some blocks, $700, you know,
Yeah.
$800, and you could
So
start finding blocks.
let's talk about that real quick. 'Cause I also had this conversation with Vijay, but I think one of the big things when it comes to proof of work protocols is the mineability and how profitable it is. Caspa, like I would say, like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago ish, was pretty damn profitable when it came to mining. That quickly changed. Now I don't even think it's like top three most mineable coin. Bitcoin is still number one. Dogecoin is number two. So when it comes to incentive for individuals to want to mine because how profitable it is, do you find that is going to be an issue with Caspa? The fact that the emission schedule was so fast, so the mining game has changed so rapidly, and Bitcoin is still the most profitable?
Yeah, so I mean, it's still profitable to mine Caspa. It just depends where you live, what your electric cost, and also your risk tolerance too. Because personally, like right now, I'm mining Caspa. I'm not profitable in dollar terms, but my loss is so insignificant that I'm willing to bear that loss and just keep mining, because I believe in the future long-term potential of Caspa. That, hey, like if it does increase in value, then this mining would be worth it. It would have been worth it to keep mining and taking a little small loss every month that I'm not caring about. I'm just paying the loss and just dealing with it, which a lot of people are doing that. So it's like there's always going to be people who are going to mine. You know, I don't think it's like, yes, there's always going to be people who need to turn off their miners because they're in different locations that it's just does not make any sense. But every time people turn off, then it becomes better for us smaller miners, which means that the smaller miners can stay in the game, and the smaller miners are usually more decentralized because we're just individual people scattered around the world, and we're just solo mining. You know, so it I think there's a healthy balance there, and there's always volatility in the mining game. Like Bitcoin has had huge surges in hash rate where it goes up, comes down. It's always going to be volatile. Um, and it's hard to predict the future. I mean, at this point, it just really depends on the price action of Caspa, and if the price surges, you know, the game changes really quick again, becomes profitable again. People
Yeah.
turn on again. Miners become more expensive to get again. I mean, it could flip so quickly. So yeah, I mean, like the trend right now has been a downtrend, but I mean, it could flip. You know, once if things become a little bit more bullish again, or um, people start using the Caspa network more, fees can start kicking in. So the game is always like just very volatile, and it just depends who you are. A lot of people that I know that mine, they host their miners in a place that actually has a very cheap electric cost so that they could stay in the mining game. So like there's just so many aspects to it that it's not just like black and white where you could just say like, oh, price goes down, everyone's going to shut down. Like it just doesn't, it's not that simple. There's so many different factors. There's people who are in contracts with mining. So even though they're in a loss, if they cut their contract, they may lose more money. So it makes
Yeah.
sense to just stay on, even though it's a loss, which means that them staying on is keeping the network secure. So there's just so many aspects to it that it's not just a simple approach to just be like, this is a downtrend and it's going to fail now. Things can flip. and there's always going to be miners that are profitable. There's always going to be better miners coming out that are higher hash rate. So the hash rate basically is always going to find a level where it will no longer drop because all the miners that exist are just so high at the
Yeah.
moment. And so like the miners are always getting better. So that hash rate long term should generally be going higher. We just saw like a huge surge in it because the price of Caspa surged, and then a lot of people kind of I think they kind of just didn't understand the risk to it a little bit, and they kind of just went all in with mining, and then people started selling. So the game is always kind of like fluctuating and changing, and right now we are starting to see a little bit of a flip where like miners are more profitable now, and the people who are here are like it's okay to they're online, they're not going to turn off. We're
Yeah.
finding like a floor of where the hash rate can kind of be, because we kind of did have a huge surge. I mean, we went from nothing, like no hash rate, to 1.59 exahashes, like
Yeah. It was
very
crazy.
quickly. I mean, it was definitely, it didn't seem sustainable. Anything that goes up that hard, is bound to kind of correct,
Yeah.
just like the price corrects if something goes up too hard. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's kind of like my view on mining right now.
So I think it's Marathon Digital
Yeah.
that mines. Yeah. So they were the one public company, I believe, that started mining Caspa,
Hmm.
but they were selling it and converting it to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Do you foresee any other companies doing something similar, but maybe keeping the Caspa, not selling it, or maybe even mining Caspa to adopt a Caspa treasury strategy? Do you see any of this happening in the future?
I think it's very possible to happen. I mean, we recently saw it with Litecoin happen now, where there's like some companies that are actually like trying to make Litecoin into a treasury kind of thing. So I think it's bound to happen with Caspa. Now I'm not a big fan of them, because it kind of just like, Caspa's not meant to be just a store of value. So like I hope that these companies that decide to become like a treasury for Caspa, they actually like find ways to use the Caspa as well within their company, especially because there are just different tools that Caspa has that potentially, a company can actually find some use from just like Caspa right now is building a texting service on the Caspa network itself that provides fees for miners. Extremely cheap to text people on the Caspa network, but I think
Interesting.
companies can kind of find, like logistic companies can find ways to use that, where they can rely on a network that usually is going to have 100% uptime instead of a
Yeah.
centralized server to do communications
Yeah.
that they need to make sure gets confirmed and gets sent instantly at internet speeds, pretty much, which Caspa can do. So that's
Yeah.
like a use case there. And then we also building a social media platform on Caspa. So, and that's going to be censorship resistant. That's going to be practically 100% uptime, no kind of censorship in there. So I mean, there's different ways that you can use Caspa outside of just store value, and it doesn't cost a lot of Caspa. So it's not like you're wasting money when you're using these services,
Yeah.
and you're supporting the network. So, but I really think, yeah, treasury companies may possibly come to Caspa. I always preach against, hey, they're not the end goals. If ETFs come for Caspa, hey, that's good for liquidity, for certain, like for anything to be money, there needs to be store of value
Yeah.
and medium of exchange. So there needs to be a good about bit of people who have faith in saving in Caspa. But I just encourage people to, hey, if you're a saver in Caspa, look for ways to how to be a user in Caspa as well. Don't just
Yeah.
only save in it, because if we do that, then we're just, this is why I'm not even a big fan of the Caspa versus Bitcoin debate, really. Or Caspa is Caspa the next Bitcoin? I'm like, no, because if it is, then it's going to fail. But no one's really using Bitcoin. Like no one's really using Bitcoin in their day-to-day lives on the base layer, at least. They may be using Lightning Network layer 2, but that's not really using Bitcoin itself.
Yeah.
So to even suggest like, oh, is Caspa the next Bitcoin? No. If it is, it will fail. I mean, I don't want Caspa to just become this thing that everyone hoards and kind of just hope that someone else is going to use it like they should be using it. Not me though. I'm just going to hold it. No, like be a user. Like this is something that can actually be used. It's convenient to use. It's not that inconvenient anymore. Whereas like with Bitcoin, you're just discouraged to use it. I mean, because it's slower, and it will be more expensive if people try to start using it itself. It will become just expensive and a burden for people to use, and it will
Yeah.
price out most of the world. I don't even understand why Bitcoiners nowadays, like, I think one person was just like, oh wow, um Caspa people complaining about not being able to afford to move $100,000 for a $10 fee. And I was like, why are you assuming everyone's fiat privilege in the world? Like, most of the world a lot of the other world where we're not fiat privileged, $10, that's like what they make in a day, possibly. And to suggest that, like, yeah, oh, you can't, like, if you why are you complaining that it's just $10 to move $100,000? No, you're pricing out most of the world. And I'm like, them with that narrative is not helping their cause. Like, I'm like, yes, that is the reason why we Kaspa over here, because Kaspa is more for the masses. It supports more people, where most of the people are going to be able to access it because it is so cheaper. It's much cheaper and it's faster, and it's okay. Like, I have someone in my Discord who's like, I'm only able to like put away like $10 in Kaspa and a month. And if he was doing that with Bitcoin, he wouldn't even be encouraged to self custody the Bitcoin until a few months later, because if he was to buy $10 of Bitcoin on an exchange and move it to a wallet right away, it will cost like $3 just to like move it to the wallet. And then not only that, every time you build too many UTXOs in a wallet address, it costs more to send out the money from that address, because every time you send money off of an address, you have to spend all your UTXOs. So if you have too many UTXOs on an address, it may price you out of even using the money that's in that address because there's too many UTXOs. And there's a lot of users that don't even know what I'm talking about right now. And they may start trying to save in Bitcoin, and they're probably saving like $10, or $50, $50, and they're putting it all in one address, not realizing that if they ever want to access that again, they're going to be paying a very large fee to move that money out of that address. And they don't even know that because of the fact that, hey, Bitcoin, it doesn't scale. It's not scalable. It's much slower. And if you want to get included in the next block, you're going to have to pay a higher fee, or be okay with waiting 30 minutes, an hour, or 2 hours, to get your money where you want it to go. So I don't know. To me, just long term, if I'm thinking long term, where the future is going, where people are gonna adopt, the most convenient thing to me. So Bitcoin University, right? YouTuber Bitcoin University. He has like 240,000 subscribers. Always talks about Bitcoin only. He made a video about Kaspa today, and called me out in it. It's funny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he just basically called me an idiot because I sold all my cold storage Bitcoin for Kaspa, and I'm just like living
Have you
rent
interacted with
free.
that Fred guy before?
I got blocked by that guy like 2 years ago, like very quickly, and I didn't even I never say anything that deserves a block. I just say like a simple fact, and I get blocked, and it's just like, okay, no conversation, like no, I don't know. I don't know. I guess these Bitcoiners are just trying to produce more blocks per second than Kaspa can. So the only way they can do that is block a lot of people on X.
Yeah, I
to
saw
make
you
more
tweet
blocks.
that. I thought that was pretty funny. I did want to touch on this though, because you made a good point. If you're trying to save small amounts of Bitcoin and you're sending it to one address, you are right. And I experienced this firsthand. So I have the Coinbase debit card. Cool idea. I spend whatever, I get to buy whatever. I get Bitcoin back with my purchases. The thing with these is, what I've realized is the exchange is basically forcing you to keep your money on their exchange, because if you move it, I mean, like, I had like 3 weeks of rewards. When I went to go send it to my cold wallet, it was like I lost like 3/4 of it. Like, what's the point? The entire point is defeated, because it's like tax. It's basically you're taxed 3/4 of the money that I was able to save. So it was completely pointless. Now, on Gemini, it's a little bit more, but it's the same exact thing. You're basically encouraged to keep it on Gemini, or else you're going to lose most of it. So, there's other cards out there. Sui has their own card. Cardano's coming out their own card. Avalanche has their own card. I'm curious to see what those structures look like, because it's not an exchange. That Avalanche could actually stay natively on Avalanche. So that's interesting to me. So I'm curious to see if Kaspa ever does anything like that in the future, because Kaspa actually is a good cash system. Some of these are just cryptocurrencies that have their own ecosystem, and that's fine. Most of them are proof of stake. I'm sure it's not something that you might not agree with. The thing is the best. For me, I think it's super interesting, because some of these ecosystems basically are building out everything. You can do anything and use that currency natively on the platform or spend it in the real world. And that's something that I think you were kind of talking about, I think is super important with Kaspa. If you have a good ecosystem, you're going to incentivize people to use Kaspa natively on Kaspa. And I think, like you said, the social media, the different use cases, the texting that's built on top of it, that's what's going to drive it there. So I'm curious to know if Kaspa ever were to have a card and you can spend Kaspa directly on it, or USDC or USDT or something like that. Is that something that you would be interested in using?
Yeah. There's actually a company that just announced called, I think it's called Cascal, if I remember correctly, or Cascad, I think that's what it was. But it's basically a company that's preparing itself for stable coins to come on Kaspa and then allow you to basically lock your Kaspa up and take a loan against it to get USDC or USDT. And then you'll have access to fiat. And then I believe they announced on there that they're making a debit card for that kind of system. So there's that. I also know Tangem. Tangem has been for the longest trying to develop a Visa Tangem card, which would allow you to basically like store your assets self custody, but then when you want to spend it, you just send it to that layer for spending.
Yeah.
And Casper would be the best for that because it's fast. So like you can quickly go to that layer that you're losing your self sovereignty to be able to spend what you want to spend, and then come off of it if you need to come off of it. And like that's the thing about Casper, like you're encouraged much more to actually self custody your Casper, whereas things like Bitcoin, like you were just saying with exchanges, you're just discouraged to actually self custody your Casper. And that's my fear of where I'm seeing Bitcoin going, is that the future of Bitcoin is mainly just a bunch of layer 2 solutions. The masses are using a bunch of layer 2s, and then the elites are using the layer 1, and they're profiting off of the masses using their solutions.
Yeah.
And so I just firmly believe that anytime you move to a different layer, you are reintroducing trust and centralization and a lot of things that you were originally trying to escape from fiat. You're kind of just doing it a different way. It's a different type of fiat now. So this is the thing with Kaspa, is that Kaspa is just self custody on Kaspa is more of a incentive to be self custody, and then a layer 2 on Kaspa is more of a choice, not a necessity. And that's the thing with Bitcoin, is using layer 2s on Bitcoin is almost like a necessity. It's the only way that makes sense to actually interact with your Bitcoin. Whereas with Kaspa, it's not a necessity. It's more of a choice.
Yeah. So if there were to be any, yield generating platforms to be built on Kaspa, is that something that you'd be interested, that you would maybe give it some time to see if you can trust the protocol first, whatever it is? But if you ended up, talking to the team, it was fair launch, grassroots, everything looks really nice, balance sheet looks nice. Is it something that you would consider actually putting up your Kaspa to maybe lock up or et cetera, however they're, that would work on Kaspa? Is that something you would actually do?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. Um, there are going to be yield farming stuff, and it does look like this solution that's coming out, it's not going to have any kind of token or anything like that. It's just their goal is to promote Kaspa use. So that's great to see. And then they did say on there that like if you wanted to, you can lock up Kaspa and provide liquidity for the service and earn a yield. So yeah, that's just something I have to consider. And then like also it's important to like understand the tax implications of doing that, and how that's all going to work. But I know it comes with a lot of risk that needs to be considered. So it's definitely not going to be for everyone. And you have to manage your risk tolerance with that stuff, because there's a lot of things with like yield farming that could make you lose a lot of money very, very quickly too. There's something called like impermanent loss. Basically, I'm not entirely sure how that whole lockup system and earning a yield is going to work, but from what I'm familiar, there are huge risks with it. So I'm definitely not sure if I am going to do it. If I do it, it definitely wouldn't be like a lot of money. It would just be something I'm willing to literally just lose. Um, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see when that stuff comes out and gets built out.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm so interested in stuff like that on Kaspa specifically is because Kaspa to me is basically like a proof of work, better version of Solana in a lot of ways. You know, Solana is such a big cryptocurrency that's marketed and, oh, it's fast and it's this. And it's like, okay, sure, it has great things, but it's extremely centralized for a proof of stake system. It goes down, transactions fail, people lose money, there's hacks on it. Kaspa to me is basically faster, but it's the secure version. It's a version that actually works. So all these people who have lost money on yield platforms, whatever, on Solana, that like I've never engaged in any of that stuff because I've always felt like I was going to lose my money. And when, you know, Voyager and Celsius, 3 Hours Capital, all that was happening, FTX, like I was kind of watching on the sidelines, very grateful that I didn't lose any money. But so many people put trust in so many protocols like that because the yield was 10% or
Yeah.
15% or something crazy. But to me, it's like I can't trust any of this stuff. It has to be a good protocol. It always comes down to the protocol itself. And I'm just very excited to see what happens with Caspa's ecosystem because I feel like it could actually provide some really good services like that I could trust. So we'll see. But
Yeah,
why do you
I'm
think?
always
Yeah, go ahead.
just wanted to share that something I've learned from my past experience when I was like a noob in crypto was like, don't chase yields, like stay away from yields altogether. That's what I've kind of practiced. Mainly just because like the yields, to get them, you have to increase your risk, and because of these projects are so small already, you can earn way more just holding it itself than trying to fight for a 10% yield or 15% yield. Anything over 10 is already just like 10 is concerning to me. Like it's just
Yeah,
like 10 if it's something like 5%, okay. Like maybe this is something more legit, but once it starts hitting the 9, 10, it's already like you can make 10% in a day just holding the asset itself. I wouldn't put more risk to my asset just to make a 10% yield in the year when I can make it that in a day holding it
yeah.
and be more secured. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I look at it. So it just really depends. Got to do research. And I'm definitely, when that stuff gets launched, I will probably make videos explaining it and giving my opinion on it.
Yeah. So talk to me about then. You got the GHOSTDAG structure behind you. What makes that a better structure and system than, let's say, Bitcoin's blockchain, for example? Because if you could see the actual structure moving behind you, it's not moving as a normal blockchain would. How Caspa finds these blocks and how they make them up is way different. It's way better. It's way more advanced than how Bitcoin works. And they're able to find a crap ton more blocks than Bitcoin is. So it makes it a better technology. Just explain that for the viewers so they kind of understand why Caspa is a better technology than Bitcoin is.
Yeah. So behind me is basically it's called a DAG, um, and we call Caspa like a block DAG instead of a blockchain because a DAG just means basically blocks being formed in parallel. And so with Bitcoin, you have a block that appears every 10 minutes with transactions in it. And then with Caspa, you have 10 blocks on average appearing every second. Some seconds, there's more than 10 blocks, but on average, it's going to be just 10. And every single block can have transactions in it. Um, this is a way that Caspa was able to increase its throughput. There's increasing block production though shouldn't be the main way to increase throughput. You can always just increase the storage of each block. But at 10 blocks per second, we can kind of expect Caspa to hit close to 3,000 transactions per second that it could handle. But the main benefits of this structure is one, it incentivizes decentralization because, like I was explaining earlier, miners can remain a solo miner and not a pool miner. they can remain a solo miner. You can connect to your own node. And since with Bitcoin, you only have 144 blocks a day. Kaspa, you have 864,000 blocks a day. Your odds of finding a block in a day are much higher with Kaspa, making you have the ability to either make exactly how much you would make if you were on a pool, or even outperform it sometimes, which I have experience where I even outperform how much a pool was supposed to give me. I outperformed it because the benefits with solo mining is that when the hash rate drops, your miner now is at that moment is much easier to find a block if it drops, if it's volatile. And if you find a block, you get that full reward. Whereas if you're on a pool and the hash rate drops, you don't. Yes, they adjust it so that you start getting more Kaspa per like minute or whatever that you're making, but it's just not the same. You have a better opportunity to find a block which has the full reward and no fees when you're solo mining. So that's why sometimes you can even outperform a pool. Um, so that's like the first reason. It just increases decentralization, and then of mining mainly. And then second of all, you have increase of MEV resistance, which MEV is short. It's short for miner extractable value. This was a thing that was kind of created on Ethereum when it was proof of work before. And then when it transitioned to proof of stake, they changed the name to maximum extractable value. And basically, what this is just MEV bots are basically able to steal from users because they can front run your transaction because the blocks are so slow. So, like in Ethereum, blocks appear every 15 seconds. So, like you have a person that's trying to do that kind of malicious attack has 15 seconds to be able to see what's coming in the next block. And on Kaspa, it's reduced because you have 10 blocks appearing every single second, and then they're getting confirmed in 10 seconds. So MEV can exist, but it's much more difficult. And on top of that, the MEV resistance that Kaspa has is on the protocol itself. Like Kaspa by default has a little bit of MEV resistance, whereas everything else, they need to pretty much find MEV resistant measures that may or may not work. And so it makes Kaspa just more attractive for app developers because when a user experiences an MEV bot extract their value, which you've probably seen before, where it's like MEV bot extracted $200,000 from someone who was doing a swap or something like that on a decentralized exchange, that happens, like where they just extract more money off of you, that user is now like, I don't want to use this ever again, you know? So it hurts the app developer because they're providing a app that has this problem of MEV, and the problem is mainly the protocol itself. It's not anything wrong with the app developer, it's just the protocol. Whereas with Kaspa, it has some better MEV resistance by default, and so like it's more attractive to build on because you can be assured that you won't experience that. So those are like the main benefits with having the faster block production. Faster block production also just increases. It doesn't increase the speed of how fast your transactions get confirmed. They're always going to get confirmed at about 10 seconds. But if but in the future there is another protocol coming for Caspa, which is pretty much like the end game, which is called Dagnite. And with Dagnite, I haven't really gotten too deep into it just because it's kind of down the line, and I kind of want to wait when it's closer to start actually researching it deeper and start explaining it to people why it can make Caspa endgame. But basically, it that will allow you to increase confirmation times, because basically the protocol itself will no longer be limited at all. It will be as fast as your internet allows. So, and it can adjust itself based on the internet and the speeds and how everything's functioning. So, very interesting design and protocol that will be coming to a proof of work system, which is crazy. So I'm looking forward to getting closer to when that's going to launch. It's in development, it's been in talks for a long time, but I'm just waiting for it to be more certain that we're going to get that before I kind of dive deep into it um, and start explaining it more in detail. But yeah, Dagnite is pretty much viewed as kind of like the end game protocol for Caspa to be upgraded to. And then at the end of the day, I mean, the best thing about Caspa is that it's no longer limited by the protocol. For you to upgrade Caspa, the only limitation it mainly has is your hardware, how much it costs for you to run a node. And so the goal is to always keep that as cheap as possible, so that users can always run the node and the network can remain decentralized. And so, I mean, like it just makes the future limitless for Caspa of what it could potentially do in the future because the cost for hardware is always declining. storage is always declining. It's always getting cheaper. So then at a certain point, 5 years down the line, it's just so cheap to get a terabyte. I think 5 years from now, probably everything's going to have a terabyte by default. You ain't going to see a device created with just 500 gigabytes anymore. It's
Yeah.
always going to be a terabyte. And by that time, okay, we can increase the block production for Caspa to 30 blocks per second, and that would increase the TPS to a much higher number. And it will also increase the variance of you finding a block as a solo miner, keeping it even more decentralized. So yeah, it just becomes like endless of the opportunities of what Caspa presents to humanity, and especially for a proof of work system. We've just never seen this before, so it's hard to even just like kind of like write it off. I'm like, how can you write off something that's just literally never existed before? It's never brought something this game changing to the proof of work world. Everything else
Yeah.
did little minor adjustments, but never anything significant like what Caspa has done here.
Could you talk about Jonathan and kind of explain the history of GHOSTDAG? And Kaspa has been around for a couple years, but this idea has been around for a long time and was actually mentioned in the Ethereum white paper. And I think Vijay said when I spoke to him last week, like 30 other white papers as well. But can you just talk about the whole idea of GHOSTDAG and the history behind it all?
Yeah, so Jonathan is dubbed as like the founder for Caspa. Um, Jonathan and Aviv Zohar are two individuals who are studying at Hebrew University, basically just cryptography, how to um, make Bitcoin faster. And for the longest, they were developing something, and they came up with something called Ghost. And that Ghost is not what exists today. Today it's called the Phantom Ghost DAG protocol. What they first came up with was just Ghost, but it was still proposing for Bitcoin to basically have 1 second blocks, and to just kind of scale it for the first time. And of course, Bitcoin kind of just rejected that completely, as they rejected pretty much any kind of proposals for scaling. And Ethereum actually saw the Ghost protocol and liked a lot of it, and they kind of used a modified version of it to create Ethereum. So if you go to the Ethereum white paper today, Jonathan is going to be on that paper. Um, and then over time, Jonathan had just continued working on trying to improve proof of work, because that's the thing. Jonathan wants to make proof of work the best, for humanity. And he's not a proof of stake guy at all. He thinks proof of work is like superior for building a cryptocurrency. So over the years, they got Ghost, and then eventually he came out with something called Spectre. That was like 2017. Then he came out with something called Phantom. Um, and these were just like little modifications, just improving speeds of transactions and confirmations. And the key thing about them is that they would only work on a proof of work system. But a lot of other cryptocurrencies over the years have used his protocols to basically create their coins. So like, basically, like, if your favorite coin out there probably is out there because of Jonathan. Like, he kind of just like, his protocols were just so game changing that people were always looking at them and kind of like implementing some of them into their coin that they created. And then eventually, he came out with the Phantom Ghost Tag in 2021, pretty much, and that's what Caspa adopted. And Caspa then launched in November of 2021, pretty much at the top of Bitcoin, when Bitcoin topped off for its bull run. Caspa launched, and it kind of just got a lot of attention and launched. It launched pretty much like in a bear market, and then it just took off. I mean, people just started talking about it, studying it, realizing it's a serious project. It's fair launched, um, and then yeah, that's pretty much where. Fast forward now, eventually I found it, and then now we're here.
So maybe one of the last thing you can leave the audience with here. I'm not going to ask you to give a price prediction, but like you said, Caspa performed very well in a bear market where there wasn't really much going on with any other cryptocurrency. In fact, I think most things were on a downward trend. So do you think that was just because the time of launch, or do you think that Caspa operates different than the rest of the market. And, if we have this insane Giga Chad bull run that's going to be around the corner, do you think Kaspa is going to perform well, or do you think it's going to do well on its own time period?
That's always such an interesting topic because Kaspa did just do something very unique in a bear market, and then it gained a lot, and then now it's going in a bull market. A lot of people are like, so many people made gains already, so it's going to underperform in the bull market. And I think like that may be a thing, but I still think in a bull market, it's probably going to have a good move if things start moving super bullish. I think it will move generally with everything else, but who knows? What if the bear market comes and Kaspa is just there and it's holding really well? And I think it's mainly just because like the people that Kaspa attracts are people who legitimately view Kaspa as an alternative money, a store of value. And so when I think of risk to reward in the space, I mean like Kaspa to me, the most riskiest thing I found, I've been studying this thing since 2023. The most riskiest thing to me is that it just doesn't catch on, which that's pretty much everything. Every asset that exists out there, if it doesn't catch on, of course, it's just not going to do well. And so because of that, I feel like it gives people safety, and it becomes more of like a hedge of like, I mean, I'm seeing it every day, people telling me like, oh yeah, Kaspa's becoming my hedge for Bitcoin. Like, so it just has these fundamental social consensus that a lot of other cryptos don't have. A lot of these proof of stake networks, no one's going into them viewing them as like an alternative money to fiat and like a store of value in that kind of same sense how like they view Bitcoin or something like that. So that's just the main difference when it comes to like these projects. It's just like the social consensus that the people it attracts. The fact that I can attract my father to get into crypto, someone who's much older, doesn't really, missed Bitcoin, knows about it, but like doesn't really have the will for himself to learn about this stuff, but Kaspa attracted him. This is what makes Kaspa different from just everything else. I mean, like I look at other projects and they're just so niche. Like how are you going to attract the 50 plus community, the 50 plus year old community? How are you going to attract them? What's kind of attractive? Oh, my coin is going to do, can do this or do that. And it's like the 50 plus world of people are, they understand how money is flawed. They understand how inflation's bad. And that's one of the ways you market Kaspa to people. And that's why you can attract more of the masses, I believe, with Kaspa compared to other projects because they're just way too niche. So,
Yeah.
and then the great thing about Kaspa is that it's not limited to just being money. It can also do everything that everything else does. So then, it's just so versatile. So I don't know, the future of Kaspa, I don't pride myself in giving much price predictions. I kind of just try to stay super conservative, and I look at things logically, and I'm just like, hey, there's not that many proof of work networks in the space. You got Bitcoin in the top 10. You just got Bitcoin and Dogecoin, and then after that, you have the dinosaur hard forks of Bitcoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash. You got Ethereum Classic, which is just a hard fork. The first version of Ethereum when after a hard fork, before a hard fork. And then you got Monero, which is extremely niche. I mean, I don't even think it's like you really can't compare that to anything. It's just a niche proof of work project. It's an anonymous network. And then after that, you get to Kaspa. And if I'm just thinking logically, I'm like, it just makes no sense that Kaspa is underneath Dogecoin as a proof of work network. And that's just something also important to realize is that these networks are backed by proof of work. And that alone, the proof of work industry alone is a huge industry, which gives these coins value, like because they're not being printed out of thin air. They're being printed with real world electricity. So that's what makes them very different from proof of stake networks and all that kind of stuff. So I just look at the competition in terms of like proof of work networks. And at the moment, to me, Kaspa is just like, it's undervalued if it's under Dogecoin. I mean, Dogecoin has an infinite supply. It's a meme coin. And people are hoping Elon tweets about it again so that they can ride the hype one more time. And then kind of it's just an exit liquidity kind of coin. It's not really breaking any grounds in crypto, but yet it's still up there. So who knows? The logic within the crypto world obviously doesn't seem to be there sometimes. There's some things that just gain so much value. And it's just like, for what? Like, why?
Yeah.
But there is a lot of manipulation that goes into these coins too. So, but yeah, that's pretty much just like, if you want to give like a price prediction, I just look in terms of market caps and just like, hey, comparing to Dogecoin, why is Kaspa below Dogecoin? I have no idea, but it should be there at least, bare minimum. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
Well, I agree with a lot of what you said. Kaspa is a top 10 coin on CoinMarketCap right now in regards to daily bullishness. So it does have eyes on it. But yeah, I like what you said in regards to, its only bad thing is if like it doesn't catch on. But as far as the network goes, the protocol goes, it is built so well. It's superior to a lot, if not mostly everything out there. So that's why I like it. I think potentially in the future, it's going to have it's kind of similar in the way Bitcoin is because of how people discover it. People discover Bitcoin initially and they're like, oh wait, no, this isn't stupid magic internet money. It's actually useful. Like it's a store of value. You can use it as a digital cash, etc. And then people go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and end up really liking Bitcoin. With Kaspa, I feel like it's the same thing. They realize, oh, this is actually useful and constructive and it's built really well and this and that. So I feel like over time, Kaspa is just going to start to grow slowly until I don't know where it's like this monster that has maybe 10 to 20 billion dollars of a market cap, which is at like 3, I think right now, 3ish. But yeah, I just think it's for me, I'm like kind of a value investor. I try to find things that are actually built well. And it's like Kaspa is the biggest no-brainer in my eyes. Like out of all of crypto, and I've been in this space since 2021. I mean, I've found maybe 2 or 3 protocols that I really like. Kaspa is one of them. But yeah, dude, I appreciate you coming on the channel. Always great talking to you. Your perspective is really refreshing. Good to hear, not just in Kaspa, but just your whole perspective that you bring to crypto.